I stood on my own porch, fumbling with the keys. The flight from Portland had been delayed, and the exhaustion was a heavy blanket. But the chill I felt had nothing to do with the late hour. The porch light was off. That was the first wrong note in a symphony of wrongness. My key slid into the lock, but the door felt strange, resistant. When I finally pushed it open, I dropped my suitcase. The thud was swallowed by the cavernous, alien space that had once been my living room. What? The warm burgundy walls, the ones my late husband Richard and I had painted over a long weekend, were gone. They were now a stark, glaring white, the kind that hurts your eyes in a hospital. My grandmother's antique furniture, the cherrywood rocker, the mahogany side tables, had vanished. In their place were sleek, low-profile pieces of glass and chrome that looked like they belonged in a sterile corporate lobby. Even the air felt different. It was cold, sterile, and smelled faintly of paint thinner and lemon-scented industrial cleaner. My home had been surgically removed, leaving the sterile shell behind. I stepped inside, my shoes echoing on the hardwood floor that was now visible without our familiar, worn-thin Persian rugs. I touched the wall. It was cold, smooth, and utterly unfamiliar. This wasn't a renovation. It was an erasure. And if you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. Surprise! The voice floated down from the top of the stairs. Valerie, my daughter-in-law, stood there, a vision in a silk robe, her blonde hair perfect. She descended the stairs with a practiced grace, a bright, brittle smile fixed on her face. "I hope you don't mind, Amelia," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I just took the liberty of updating a few things while you were away. It was all so dated." My suitcase sat by the door, a relic from a life that no longer existed in this house. "Valerie," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "where is my furniture?" "Oh, that old stuff?" She waved a dismissive hand, her diamond rings catching the cold light. "I had it all donated. Such a relief to get rid of those dusty, heavy antiques. The house feels so much lighter now, don't you think? More contemporary." My grandmother's rocking chair. Richard's favorite leather reading chair, the one with the permanent indent from his shoulders. The coffee table where we'd played countless games of Scrabble with our son, David. Gone. All gone. "You had no right," I said, my voice finding its strength. "Actually, I did." Valerie's smile sharpened, the sweetness vanishing to reveal the steel beneath. "David signed the household authority paperwork months ago. As his wife, I have full legal authority to make decisions. Besides, you'll need to get used to sharing." I narrowed my eyes. "Sharing? That's the other part of the surprise," she chirped, clapping her hands lightly. "Mother and Daddy are moving in. We were just getting the master suite ready for them." My master suite, the room Richard and I had shared for 30 years. "Where?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Am I supposed to sleep?" "Well, in the guest room, of course," Valerie said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Mother and Daddy need the master. They need the space and the ensuite bathroom. Don't worry," she added, already turning toward the kitchen. "I've already had your things moved." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw her out, but I didn't. I couldn't, because I knew something about Valerie. I knew a secret that made this monstrous act, this theft of my home, seem almost trivial, and that secret was the only leverage I had. 3 weeks earlier, the scent of stale coffee and old paper filled the office of Hayes Construction. It was nearly midnight, and I was buried in quarterly reports. David, my son, handled the day-to-day operations now, but I still managed the final financial oversight. It was my way of staying connected to Richard, to the legacy we had built together, but the numbers weren't adding up. It started small, a few $100s here, an inflated invoice for supplies there. I chalked it up to sloppy bookkeeping, maybe a new, careless vendor. But the discrepancies grew, forming a pattern that made my blood run cold. Valerie had access to our accounts. She was David's wife and handled administrative duties. I started cross-referencing vendor payments with bank statements, my desk lamp cutting a small, lonely circle of light in the dark office. I found it. A masterpiece of embezzlement. Fictitious vendor payments, redirected funds, inflated supply costs. The difference wasn't going to a supplier. It was being funneled into a separate account. An account I traced, with a sickening lurch in my stomach, directly to Valerie. Over the last 18 months, my daughter-in-law had stolen just over $200,000 from our family business. My first instinct was to call David, to drag him down to the office and show him the undeniable proof. But my hand hovered over the phone. David loved her. He was blind to her faults, utterly devoted. She had, I admitted, made him happy. This would destroy him. It would destroy our family. It would traumatize my grandchildren, Emily and Jacob. So I made a choice. I would handle it quietly. I would confront her, give her a chance to repay it, and keep the family intact. It was a noble, stupid decision. We met at Ruby's Diner, a small place downtown with red vinyl booths and mediocre coffee. I chose it because it was public but quiet. Valerie arrived 20 minutes late, sliding into the booth with a flurry of apologies. "So sorry, Amelia. The kids were just impossible this morning. What's this all about?" She flashed her perfect, rehearsed smile. "I didn't waste time. I've been reviewing the company finances, Valerie. I found some serious irregularities." Her expression didn't flicker, but her grip tightened on her coffee mug. "Oh, like what?" "Missing funds, payments to shell companies. It appears someone has been systematically stealing from us." Her performance was flawless. She looked concerned, even shocked. "Amelia, that's terrible. Do you think it's someone at the bank? An employee?" I leaned forward. "I know it's you, Valerie." The mask slipped. Just for a second. I saw it in her eyes. Calculation, acknowledgement, and something that looked terrifyingly like relief. She was tired of hiding. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a quiet hiss. "Prove it." "I have the documentation, the bank transfers, the account numbers." "But you'll never show David," she countered, her confidence absolute. "You won't. Because you love your son more than you love that money. You know this would destroy him. It would end our marriage, and you would lose your grandchildren. You'll keep quiet to protect the family." She was right, and we both knew it. "Here's what's going to happen," she continued, stirring sugar into her coffee with a steady hand. "You're going to let this go. You're going to stop digging around in files that, frankly, you're too old to understand anymore. In return," she smiled, "I'll be more careful." She slid out of the booth, tossing a few dollars on the table. "See you Sunday for dinner, Amelia. I'm so glad we had this talk." As I watched her walk out, I realized I hadn't just been blackmailed. I had been given a declaration of war. I didn't go home after that meeting at Ruby's Diner. The acidic taste of bad coffee and raw fear was in my mouth. Valerie's final words echoed in my head. "I'll be more careful." She wouldn't stop. She would just get better at hiding it. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. I had the files, I had the proof, but I hadn't made copies. It was all on the company server, a folder I had carefully hidden, and in a stack of invoices locked in my desk. A cold dread seized me. Valerie was smart. She was calculating. She knew I had the proof. What was her first move? I drove straight to the Hayes construction building, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I let myself into the dark, silent office. The cleaning crew had already left. I didn't turn on the overhead lights, using only the glow from the emergency exit signs to navigate to my office. I unlocked my door, sat at my desk, and powered on the computer. My pulse thrummed in my ears. I logged in. I navigated to the secure server drive, to the hidden folder I had named Our Project Audit. I double-clicked. A Windows error message popped up. This file is no longer available. It may have been moved or deleted. No, 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 no. I frantically searched the server logs. I wasn't a tech expert, but I knew the basics. I pulled up the recent activity log for the drive. There it was, an entry from 10 minutes after I had left the diner. A remote login from an IP address I recognized as Valerie's home computer. Command delete, target is drive, secure, or project audit. She hadn't even waited. She had gone straight home and erased it. The digital files, the spreadsheets, the scanned bank statements, all of it, gone. My hands flew to my desk, to the bottom drawer where I kept my personal files. I turned the key in the lock. It was empty. The physical folder of invoices I had printed, it was gone too. She must have come here while I was waiting for her at the diner. She was late. Not because of the kids. She was late because she was here, in my office, stealing the only proof I had. I sat back in my chair, the darkness of the office pressing in on me. I had lost. I had confronted her, and she had countered by destroying my entire arsenal. I had nothing, no proof, no leverage, just the knowledge of a crime I could no longer prove. The changes started that very weekend. It was a war of 1,000 paper cuts, each one designed to bleed me of my authority and my sanity. Valerie started with the kitchen. I came down one morning to find her directing 2 workmen who were installing new, high-end stainless steel appliances. "What's this?" I demanded. "My stove worked perfectly." "Oh, Amelia, it was an antique. This is all integrated, smart tech. I can preheat the oven from my phone," Valerie explained. "I've already thrown out all your old pots and pans. They weren't compatible with the new induction cooktop." My cast iron skillet, the one Richard had given me our first Christmas together, was gone. A few days later, my favorite coffee mugs, heavy, ceramic, each with a story, disappeared from the cabinet. They were replaced by delicate, thin porcelain cups that I was afraid to hold. "We're upgrading, Amelia," Valerie said, her smile never wavering. "Time to get rid of the clutter." She hosted dinner parties without consulting me, filling my home with her loud, shallow friends. I was expected to provide the food and then disappear, relegated to the role of an upstairs maid. "Ava made her famous lasagna," she would announce, taking credit for my hours of work. Then she would turn to me. "Don't let us keep you, Amelia. You look tired. You should probably go rest." She was pushing me out, painting me as frail, incompetent, and irrelevant, all while smiling. The true cruelty of her campaign became clear on my granddaughter's 10th birthday. Emily and I had been planning her party for weeks, a fairy garden theme. I had spent days handcrafting intricate decorations, moss-covered signs, tiny wooden fairy houses, and a 3-tiered cake decorated like an enchanted forest. The morning of the party, Valerie arrived, not with David and the kids, but with her mother, Catherine, and a car full of plastic-wrapped, store-bought decorations. "Change of plans," Valerie announced, breezing past me. "We're doing a Hollywood glam theme, pink and gold, much more sophisticated. Emily will love it." But Emily and I planned... "Amelia, please." Her voice was sharp. "Emily is my daughter. I think I know what she wants. This fairy tale stuff is for babies." She and Catherine began tearing down my handmade decorations, stuffing them into a trash bag. Emily stood in the doorway, her face crumpling. "But Grandma and I made the fairies." "Oh, sweetie," Valerie cooed, rushing to her daughter. "Grandma means well, but this is so much prettier. Look, a red carpet." When the other parents arrived, Valerie was in her element. "Oh, this. It was nothing. I just want Emily's day to be perfect," she said, accepting compliments for the party she had stolen. I watched from the kitchen as she cut into my cake, the cake I had finished baking at 2 a.m., and graciously accepted praise for her creation. I was invisible, a ghost in my own home at my own granddaughter's party. That night, after the last guest had left, I found David in the kitchen grabbing a beer. I was scraping frosting off the Hollywood glam paper plates. "Great party, Mom," he said, oblivious. Valerie really outdid herself. I stopped scraping. David, we need to talk. Sure, what's up? Don't you think Valerie should have discussed changing the entire theme of the party with me? Emily and I worked on those decorations for weeks. He looked genuinely puzzled. Why? It's Emily's party, Mom. Valerie knows what she likes. It looked great. Everyone had fun. But Emily was upset. She wanted the fairy theme we planned. Mom. He let out an exasperated sigh, that patient tone he used when he thought I was being difficult. I think you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Valerie was just trying to make everything perfect. Honestly, you should be grateful she's willing to do all this. She's including you. Grateful. I should be grateful that my daughter-in-law, who was actively stealing from our company, had graciously allowed me to host a party in my own home, erased all my contributions, and then accepted praise for it. I looked at my son, the man Richard and I had raised to be honest and good, and I saw a stranger. He had been so thoroughly blinded by her manipulation that he couldn't see the truth right in front of him. He saw his loving, competent wife and his difficult, aging mother. I said nothing else. I just turned back to the sink and continued scraping the plates. I was completely, utterly alone in this. A week later, I came home from the grocery store to find a moving truck blocking my driveway. Catherine and Brian Monroe, Valerie's parents, were standing on my porch, directing two movers who were carrying a large, gaudy sofa through my front door. Valerie met me on the walkway, her smile brighter than ever. They're here. Isn't it wonderful? You said they were visiting. This looks permanent. It's just temporary, Amelia. Don't be so dramatic. Just until they get back on their feet. Brian Monroe hadn't held a job in 5 years. Catherine claimed a vague disability that didn't stop her from shopping, but made employment impossible. Getting back on their feet was their permanent state of being, funded by their daughter, funded by my company. Within an hour, they were settled in my master suite. Within a day, my house was no longer my own. Brian commandeered the living room, a beer permanently in his hand, the television blasting sports at a deafening volume. Catherine took over my kitchen, criticizing my pantry. You don't have any real butter, Amelia? Just this low-fat spread? And instant coffee? How do you live like this? They ate my food, used my utilities, and treated me with a casual disdain that mirrored Valerie's. I was an obstacle, an inconvenience in their new home. I was living in the guest room, listening to them laugh and watch TV in the house Richard built for me. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Emily had been cast as the lead in her school play. She was so proud, and I had promised I would be in the front row. The night of the play, I was in my small guest room putting on my lipstick when Valerie knocked and entered without waiting. Amelia, I'm so sorry, but there's been a little change of plans, she said. Her mother, Catherine, stood behind her, preening in a new dress. Mother has decided she wants to see Emily perform, which is just so sweet, Valerie continued. But we only have 3 seats in the front row, me, David, and one for a grandmother. And since Catherine is her grandmother... The implication hung in the air, thick and toxic. Catherine was family. I was the landlady. Emily saved me that seat, I said, my voice cold. Oh, she'll understand. She's a mature girl. Besides, you'll have other chances to see her perform. It's not a big deal. She and Catherine left. I watched from my small window as they got into David's car and drove away, leaving me behind. But this time, something in me snapped. The humiliation, the disrespect, the erasure. It was too much. I was done. I grabbed my car keys. I drove to the school myself. I bought a ticket for the general admission section and found a single seat in the back row of the dark auditorium. From there, I watched my granddaughter perform. She was magnificent, her voice clear and confident. She scanned the front row, and I saw the small, brief flicker of disappointment on her face when she didn't see me. But she was a professional. She carried on. After the play, I found her in the chaotic lobby. "Grandma, you came!" She threw her arms around me. "You were sitting so far back I couldn't see you." "I wouldn't have missed it for the world, sweetheart. You were—" "There you are, Emily." Valerie's sharp voice cut through the crowd. She and Catherine pushed their way through. "Come take pictures with Grandmother Catherine. She came all this way just for you." Emily looked confused, her hand still in mine. "But Grandma Amelia is here too. Can she be in the picture?" "Of course," Valerie said, her smile like a razor. "That's a great idea. Maybe Grandma Amelia can take the picture for us." She handed me her phone. And just like that, I was relegated from family to photographer, capturing the happy moment I was explicitly excluded from. As I held the phone, my hand steady, I looked at Valerie, smiling brightly for the camera. She thought she had won. She thought she had finally, completely erased me. She had no idea what she had just started. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the cramped guest room, the humiliation from the school still burning in my chest. Valerie had handed me her phone, and I had taken the picture. That was the woman I had become, a prop, a servant. But the anger was a cold, hard stone in my gut. It was no longer about protecting David from the truth. It was about survival. Valerie had won the first round. She had destroyed my evidence. She had turned my son against me and stolen my home. She was arrogant, confident, and completely exposed. And that was where I would find her weakness. The $200,000 was gone. The proof was gone. She had covered her tracks. But a thief that bold doesn't stop. A thief that greedy, that confident. She would have gotten sloppier. She would have stolen more. I just had to find it. I needed a new weapon. The old one was gone, destroyed. I had to find a new vulnerability, a new line of attack. I had to go back to the office, but not to the files I knew. I had to look for the files I didn't, the ones she thought no one would ever look for. The war wasn't over. It was just entering a new, more dangerous phase. And this time, I wasn't fighting to protect my family. I was fighting to save myself. My first move was to find a new way in. Valerie had locked me out of the main accounting files, citing my confusion and age to David, who had dutifully changed the passwords. But she didn't know the deep server architecture. I did. Richard and I had built it. I spent 2 days at the public library using their computers to remotely access the deep server backups. I was looking for anything, a digital breadcrumb. I found it in the employee logs. A name that made me wince. Martin. Martin had been our accountant for 5 years. I had fired him 3 months ago for repeated, sloppy mistakes. He was bitter, and he had blamed me for his dismissal, even though David had signed off on it. I found a minor discrepancy in a vendor file from the week before he was fired. It was linked to his login, but the pattern, it wasn't sloppy. It was deliberate. It looked like the start of one of Valerie's shell company payments, but it had been aborted. Had he been her accomplice? Or had she tried to frame him? I tracked him down. He was working at a small tax prep office in a strip mall across town. The office was cramped and smelled like burnt coffee. "Amelia Hayes," he sneered when he saw me. "Come to fire me from this job too? I'm not here for that, Martin. I'm here about Valerie." His face darkened. That witch. What about her? "I think she was stealing from the company. I think she tried to set you up to take the fall." Martin laughed, a short barking sound. "Tried? She did. After you fired me, she discovered a bunch of errors I'd made. Tried to pin her first round of thefts on me. I cleared my name, but it tanked my reputation." "So you know she's stealing," I said. "Of course I know. I saw it starting. That's why I was making those sloppy mistakes you fired me for. I was trying to create a trail away from my login to wall off my work from hers. But you just saw a mess and canned me." I swallowed my pride. "I need your help, Martin. She's destroyed my home. She's trying to have me declared incompetent. She's destroyed all the proof I had." Martin stared at me for a long time, his eyes cold. "And why should I help you?" "You threw me to the wolves. Because she's going to destroy the whole company, and because she'll get away with it if you don't." He turned to his computer and typed for a moment. He scribbled something on a sticky note. "I'm not helping you, Amelia. You made your bed. But I'll be damned if I let that woman win." He handed me the note. "That's the password to the Project Archive server. It's a dumping ground for old bids. She thinks no one ever looks at it, but she's been using it to hide her real work. Now get out of my office." I took the note. "Thank you, Martin." "Don't thank me," he snapped, turning back to his screen. "Just burn her to the ground." I didn't go home. I went straight to the office. It was late, and the building was empty. I let myself in and went straight to my old desk. I logged into the Project Archive server using Martin's password. It was, as he said, a digital graveyard of failed bids and old blueprints. It took me an hour of digging, sifting through hundreds of files, before I found it. It was a folder named Monroe Estate Project. My blood ran cold. Monroe was Valerie's maiden name. I opened the file. It wasn't a $200,000 theft. This was a monster. It was an entirely fictitious construction project, a luxury home renovation that existed only on paper. But the invoices were real. The payments were real. For 8 months, Hayes Construction had been paying for materials, labor, and permits for a house that didn't exist. I opened the contracts. My son's signature was on every one. Forged. I knew David's signature better than my own. This was a decent imitation, but it was a fake. I followed the money trail. All the payments were being sent to a shell company, M Holdings LLC, a company that, according to the documents, was registered to a P.O. box, a company that was funneling all its income to a single bank account. The total was staggering, $437,000. And it had all been stolen in the last 8 months. After I had confronted her at the diner, after she had promised to be more careful. This wasn't just theft. This was a declaration of total war. This was her endgame. I started printing. Bank statements, forged contracts, fake invoices, wire transfer confirmations. The printer churned out page after page, the sound echoing loudly in the silent office. I had it. This was the smoking gun. This was undeniable. I was gathering the last stack of papers from the printer when I heard a sound in the hallway. The click of the front office door. My heart stopped. The office was supposed to be empty. It was almost 9 p.m. I heard footsteps, high heels clicking purposefully on the tile floor, clicking toward the accounting wing, clicking toward me. I grabbed the mountain of papers and shoved them frantically into my briefcase, under a stack of legitimate files and old blueprints. I snapped the latches shut just as Valerie appeared in the doorway. "Amelia!" she said, her voice bright and surprised, but her eyes were cold, calculating. "What a surprise! I thought you'd be home." "Valerie?" I tried to keep my voice steady, my pulse racing. I was just catching up on some paperwork." "So late?" She glided into the room, her gaze sweeping across my desk, lingering on the printer that was still warm. "You really should be resting. You've seemed so stressed lately." "I'm fine. What brings you here?" "Oh, I just forgot some files for a vendor meeting tomorrow." She perched on the edge of David's desk, taking ownership of the space. "Feeling better, I hope. David's been so worried about you." "I'm perfectly fine," I said, standing up and grabbing my briefcase. The weight of the evidence inside felt like it was pulling my arm from its socket. "I should head home. It's late." "Good idea," she smiled. "Mother is trying a new pot roast recipe tonight. She's so excited to be cooking for the family in a real kitchen." Another small, deliberate knife thrust. I just nodded and walked toward the door. "Oh, Amelia!" Her voice stopped me. I turned. "What were you working on exactly?" she asked, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. "Just reconciling some old vendor payments. Nothing urgent." "Which vendors?" she pressed. I handle most of that paperwork now. Maybe I can finish it for you." The question was too specific. She suspected. She knew I was here for a reason. "Various ones," I said, forcing a vague smile. "It's all taken care of. Don't worry about it. Good night, Valerie." I walked out of that office, my back rigid, feeling her eyes on me every step of the way. I made it to my car before my knees buckled, and I had to lean against the door to keep from falling. She knew. She didn't know what. I had, but she knew I was fighting back. The game had just become infinitely more dangerous. The atmosphere in the house that night was electric with unspoken tension. Valerie was performatively cheerful, praising her mother's dry, overcooked pot roast while shooting me calculating glances across the dinner table. David, oblivious, talked about a new construction bid, while Brian and Catherine argued about which game show to watch. After dinner, as I was washing the mountain of dishes, a chore Catherine had promised to do but forgot, Valerie appeared at my elbow with a dish towel. "Let me help," she said, her voice laced with manufactured concern. "You look exhausted, Amelia." We worked in silence for a minute, the only sounds the clink of plates and the booming television from the living room. "You know, Amelia," she said suddenly, "I've been thinking. I'm really worried about you." I kept scrubbing a pot. "I don't know what you mean." "All this confusion lately. Forgetting things. Getting upset about the party decorations, forgetting I told you Mother and Daddy were moving in." I stopped scrubbing and turned to her. "You never told me, Valerie. You're lying." "See?" She put on a sad, concerned face. "You're getting agitated. It's okay, Amelia. Memory issues are completely normal at your age. It's nothing to be ashamed of." Her voice was pitched just loud enough for David, who was walking into the kitchen to grab another beer, to hear. "What's going on?" David asked, looking between us. "Mom, if you're having trouble keeping track of things—" "I am not having trouble," I snapped, my patience gone. "See, David?" Valerie touched his arm gently, her eyes wide with fake sympathy. "She gets so defensive when we try to help. I was just suggesting that maybe it's time for her to step back from the company finances. It's all too stressful for her." I looked at my son, pleading with my eyes for him to see the truth. He just looked at me with that same awful, patient expression. "Mom, maybe she's right. You've been off lately, stressed, forgetful. Maybe it is time to let us handle the business." I stared at them, standing side by side. The perfect concerned couple. They were tag-teaming me. Valerie wasn't just stealing my money. She was stealing my sanity. She was building a case brick by brick to prove I was losing my mind, and my own son was handing her the mortar. I was officially a prisoner. The next day, Saturday, I tried to go to the office. David gently suggested I take the weekend off. "Valerie and I can handle anything that comes up. You just relax, Mom." Relax. I felt like a caged animal. I waited until I saw David and Valerie leave with the kids, supposedly for a family outing. Brian and Catherine were glued to a marathon of some daytime court show. I slipped out of the house. I had to know the rest. I had to know the end game. I drove to the office, my hands shaking. I let myself in, my briefcase full of evidence now locked in the trunk of my car. I went to Valerie's desk. It was locked, but I was still the owner of this company. I had a master key for every piece of furniture in the building. I opened her desk. It was obsessively neat, planners, pens, and a locked file box. I opened that, too. Inside, I didn't find financial documents. I found medical pamphlets. Understanding dementia. Choosing the right assisted living facility. Legal options for incapacitated parents. A cold dread, sharper and more terrifying than anything I had felt before, washed over me. That's when I heard it. A voice from David's office, Valerie's voice. She was here. She hadn't gone with David. I didn't breathe. I slipped out from behind her desk and pressed myself into the shadows of the hallway, just outside David's open door. She was on the phone, her voice low and urgent. No, the power of attorney is the first step, she was saying. It should be straightforward given her obvious mental decline. David is already fully on board. He's noticed all the memory issues I've been pointing out. A pause. Dr. Hamilton is being very cooperative. He's already agreed that her stress levels are dangerously high and that a cognitive assessment is the next logical step. Dr. Hamilton, my physician for 30 years. Once I have legal authority over her finances, we can liquidate the business assets cleanly, she continued. The house will be more complicated, but if she's declared incompetent, we can force a sale for her own protection. By Christmas, it will all be resolved. David will have full control of the new business, and Amelia will be safely settled in assisted living where she belongs. Assisted living. She was planning to have me declared incompetent, lock me away, and steal everything. My company, my house, my life. He has no idea, she laughed, a soft, cruel sound. He's genuinely concerned. He thinks this is all to help her. He's the perfect tool. I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I was afraid she would hear it. This was her plan, not just theft. A complete and total takeover, using my own son as the weapon and my dementia as the excuse. She was going to erase me from the world. I didn't wait. I didn't go home. I drove from the office straight to the city's downtown police precinct, my briefcase on the passenger seat. I walked into the Economic Crimes Division and asked for the head detective. I must have looked frantic, a wild-eyed 64-year-old woman clutching a briefcase, but I didn't care. They put me in a small gray interview room. A few minutes later, a woman in a sharp blazer entered, holding a notepad. Mrs. Hayes, I'm Detective Sandra Cruz. What can I help you with? My daughter-in-law is stealing from my company, I said, my voice shaking, and she is trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so she can steal everything I own. Detective Cruz didn't blink. She just sat down. Okay, tell me from the beginning, and please, ma'am, show me what you've got. For 2 hours, I laid it all out. The first $200,000 theft, the confrontation, the destroyed evidence, the new discovery, the $437,000 fake construction project, the forged signatures, the pamphlets for assisted living, the phone call I had just overheard mentioning power of attorney and Dr. Hamilton. I opened my briefcase and laid the printed evidence on the table between us. The forged contracts, the bank transfers to the M Holding Shell Company. Detective Cruz's expression went from professional curiosity to grim focus. She picked up the forged contract. This is a sophisticated operation, Mrs. Hayes. The Shell Company, the fake project. She's done this before. She's moving fast, I said, my voice urgent. She mentioned Christmas. She's planning to file for power of attorney soon, and she's using my own doctor to do it. Cruz's eyes hardened. That's not just fraud. That's financial elder abuse with psychological manipulation. That moves this to the top of the pile. She picked up her phone. Mrs. Hayes, you did exactly the right thing by coming here. We're going to handle this, and we're going to handle it now. But first, we need to pay a visit to your doctor. Detective Cruz didn't waste time. She drove me, in her unmarked car, straight to Dr. Hamilton's medical building. She used her badge to get us an immediate private meeting. Dr. Hamilton, a man I had trusted for decades, looked stunned to see me walk in with a police detective. Amelia, what's this all about? Is everything all right? That's what we're here to find out, Doctor, Detective Cruz said, her voice sharp and official. We're investigating a case of financial elder abuse against Mrs. Hayes, and your name has come up, specifically in a plot to have her declared incompetent. The color drained from Dr. Hamilton's face. I don't understand. Her daughter-in-law, Valerie, came to me. She was concerned. Concerned? I finally spoke, my voice shaking with anger. Or convincing. Dr. Hamilton looked at me, his face a mask of dawning horror and embarrassment. She came to me 6 weeks ago. She said she was worried about you. She described episodes of confusion, memory loss. She had specific examples. The party, her parents moving in. She said you were forgetting conversations, getting agitated. She was lying, doctor, I said. She was building a case. She's stolen nearly $500,000 from my company, and she was getting you to help her commit me so she could take the rest. My God, he whispered, sinking into his chair. She seemed so sincere. She brought me articles about elderly patients being taken advantage of, said she was worried you were a target. The irony. Did you agree to help her? Detective Cruz asked, her pen poised over her notepad. I agreed to recommend a cognitive assessment at her request, he stammered. I thought I was helping a concerned family protect their mother. I never... Amelia, I am so sorry. I played right into her hands. You can make it right, Doctor, Detective Cruz said. We need a full statement from you. Everything she said, every example she gave you. We need to document her attempt to manipulate a medical professional. Will you cooperate? Dr. Hamilton looked at me, his eyes filled with shame. Absolutely, 100%. That woman, she didn't just commit fraud. She preyed on my professional duty. I'll give you whatever you need. I had the police. I had the doctor. There was only one piece left, the most painful one. I called David on Sunday morning and asked him to meet me for coffee. Just us, David. Please, it's important. He agreed, though his voice was wary. He probably assumed I was going to complain about Valerie again. We met at a small cafe, not Ruby's Diner. I couldn't go back there. Mom, you sounded intense on the phone, he said as he sat down. Is everything okay? If this is about the guest room... It's not about the guest room, David. I opened my purse and took out a single folder. Not the mountain of evidence I gave the police, but a few key documents. I need you to listen to me, I said, my voice low and steady. Not as Valerie's husband, but as my son, as Richard's son. I am going to tell you the truth, and then I am going to show you proof. He leaned back, his arms crossed, defensive. Okay? Valerie is stealing from Hayes Construction. She has been for years, but it's gotten worse. Much worse. Mom, we've been over this. You're stressed. You're not... She has stolen $437,000 in the last 8 months, David. She created a fake construction project, a shell company, and she forged your signature on contracts to do it. His defiant expression faltered. What? That's insane. She doesn't have the authority. I slid the folder across the table. Open it. He opened it. The first thing he saw was the contract for the Monroe Estate project. He stared at it. I signed this. I must have. Look at the signature, David. Really look at it. He traced it with his finger. I watched his world crumble. I saw the blood drain from his face as he recognized the tiny telltale differences he'd never noticed. That's not my signature. Keep going. He flipped the page to the bank transfers, M Holdings, LLC. He flipped again to the wire confirmations. Hundreds of thousands of dollars gone. Why? His voice was a hoarse whisper. Why would she? Because that's not all she's planning? And I told him everything. The plan to have me declared incompetent, the assisted living facility, the manipulation of Dr. Hamilton, the phone call I overheard. By the time I finished, he was gripping the edge of the table, his knuckles white. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a pain so profound it stole my breath. It was the look of a man whose entire life had just been revealed as a lie. The police are arresting her tomorrow morning, David, I said gently. At the office. Tomorrow, he repeated numb. I thought you should know. I thought you deserved to hear it from me. Emma, Jacob, he choked out. My kids. They'll be okay, I said, reaching across the table and taking his hand. It was cold as ice. "They have you, and they have me. We're their family. We'll get through this." He stared at our joined hands, and finally he squeezed back. The spell was broken. I returned home to a house full of enemies, but something had changed. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard certainty. Valerie watched me all through Sunday dinner. I was no longer fighting her. I was polite. I was quiet. I was calm. This calm seemed to unnerve her more than my anger ever had. "You seem unusually relaxed, Amelia," she observed, as she watched me read a book in the living room while Brian blasted his show. "Have you been taking something? Maybe a new medication?" "I'm just trying to go with the flow, dear," I replied, not looking up from my page. "You were right. It's time for me to accept help." Her sharp, suspicious gaze softened, replaced by a triumphant smirk. She thought she had won. She thought I had finally broken. "I'm so glad to hear you say that, Amelia," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's so important to accept changes gracefully." Monday morning, I dressed carefully. I put on my best navy suit, the one Richard always called my boardroom armor. I went down to the kitchen at 7 a.m. Valerie was already there, sipping coffee in her silk robe, the picture of the lady of the manor. "You're up early," she noted. "Couldn't sleep," I said, pouring myself a cup. "Thought I'd get an early start at the office." She leaned against the counter, studying me. "You know, Amelia, I've been thinking about our conversation, about you stepping back from the financial side." "Oh?" "Yes, David and I agree it's for the best. Less stress for you, more time for you to, relax." The transition. The final step in her plan. "That's very thoughtful of you, dear," I said, taking a sip of coffee. Valerie blinked, clearly surprised by my easy agreement. She had been prepared for a fight. "So, you're open to the idea?" "Absolutely. We should probably meet with the accountants and lawyers, get the paperwork started." "Actually," she said, her smile widening, "I was thinking we could start the transition today. Just us. We can go to the office this morning and you can walk me through the primary accounts. We can begin transferring signatory authority. Today." She was moving even faster than I thought. "That sounds perfect," I said, placing my cup in the sink. I picked up my purse. "I'll meet you there. I have to run a quick errand first." "Oh, Amelia," she said, stepping in front of me, blocking my path to the door. "Why don't you just take the day off? I can handle everything at the office. You've earned a rest." She was trying to get to the office first, to lock me out, to begin the final transfer of funds. "You know," I said, smiling back at her, "that's a wonderful idea. I think I'll do just that. You handle everything, dear." I walked past her. As I backed my car out of the driveway, I saw 2 unmarked sedans turn onto my street. Perfect timing. I drove to the grocery store. I spent 45 minutes examining produce. I read the ingredients on 3 different brands of cereal. I was meticulously comparing the price per ounce of canned tomatoes when my phone finally rang. "Mrs. Hayes, this is Detective Cruz. We have Mrs. Mrs. Valerie Hayes in custody." The relief was so profound I had to grip the shopping cart to stay upright. How did she react?" "About as you'd expect," Cruz said, a grim satisfaction in her voice. "She's demanding a lawyer and insisting this is all a terrible misunderstanding caused by your advancing dementia. She seems to genuinely believe her own story." "Of course she does. What about her parents?" "Also in custody. Turns out Mr. and Mrs. Monroe have outstanding warrants in 2 other states for fraud and con artistry. Your daughter-in-law learned from the best." I started to laugh, a real, genuine laugh, right in the middle of the canned goods aisle. They weren't just parasites. They were a family of professional criminals. "What happens now, Detective?" "Arraignment this afternoon. Given the flight risk, the multiple jurisdictions, and the elder abuse charges, I highly doubt She'll be granted bail. Oh, she added, you should know. When we searched her purse, we found the completed guardianship papers. She was planning to file them this afternoon, right after she secured the bank accounts. This afternoon. I had been hours away from a fight I might have lost. Thank you, Detective, I said, my voice thick, for everything. Just doing my job, Mrs. Hayes. It's always a good day when the right person wins. When I pulled into my driveway, the police cars were gone. The only vehicle was David's truck. The house was silent. I walked through my front door. The cold, white living room felt different, empty, peaceful. I found David in the kitchen, sitting at the table I'd shared with Richard for 30 years. His head was in his hands. David? He looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. I called in sick. I couldn't face the office. The kids are at school. I don't know what to tell them. I sat down across from him in the same spot where Valerie had blackmailed me, where she had plotted my destruction. She's been lying to me since the day I met her, hasn't she? He whispered. I think so, yes. How did I not see it? His voice broke. How did I let her turn me against my own mother? She made me believe you were becoming this bitter, confused old woman. She's a professional, David, I said gently. She fooled a lot of people, including Dr. Hamilton. But I'm your son. I should have protected you. Instead, I helped her. The shame radiating from him was a physical thing. She's gone now, I said. That's what matters. What happens to Emma and Jacob? He asked, the fear raw in his voice. That depends on you. What do you want to happen? He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. I want to raise them, here, with you, if you'll have us. Tears pricked my eyes. My house, my home. It would be a home again. Of course I'll have you, David. This is your home, too. It always was. We spent that afternoon cleaning. It was a purge. We went into the master suite, my master suite, and bagged up every trace of Catherine and Brian Monroe, their tacky clothes, their cheap toiletries, the lingering smell of Brian's cigars. We donated the clothes and threw the rest in a dumpster. We scrubbed the room from top to bottom. When we were done, I opened the windows, letting the fresh air chase out the last of their presence. It was my room again. The hardest part was when the school bus dropped off Emily and Jacob. They burst through the door, yelling for their mother. "Where's Mom?" Emily asked, dropping her backpack. David sat them both down on the sofa, the sleek, modern sofa that Valerie had bought. Mom won't be coming home for a while." He explained it as gently as he could, that their mother had made big mistakes with money, that she had taken things that didn't belong to her. "She stole?" Jacob asked, his 7-year-old mind direct and blunt. "Yes, honey. She stole." Emma, at 10, understood the implications. From the company? From Grandma? Yes. Emma's face crumpled. Is that why she was always so mean to Grandma? The question, so simple and so perceptive, hung in the air. "She's in jail, isn't she?" Emma whispered. "Yes, sweetheart." The children were remarkably resilient. They cried, they asked questions, and then they adapted. That night, we ordered pizza and ate it out of the box, sitting on the floor in the living room. It was the first real, relaxed family meal we'd had in that house in years. A new routine formed. I made them breakfast. David drove them to school. We had dinner together every night at the kitchen table. The house, which had been a cold, sterile prison, filled with the noise of homework and laughter and life. About a week later, I got a call from Detective Cruz. "Mrs. Hayes, your case has just been escalated. The FBI is taking it over. They'd like to meet with you immediately." FBI? I met them in a secure conference room downtown, not at the police precinct. The The woman who introduced herself was all business, in a dark suit with an FBI pin on the lapel. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Agent Paula Mickelson, Financial Crimes Unit. We're very grateful you came forward. You've broken open a case we've been working on for 6 years. I don't understand." Agent Mickelson opened a file. "The woman you know as Valerie Hayes. That's an alias. Her real name is Sylvia Marie Colton." She slid a photo across the table. It was her. Younger, with dark hair, but the same cold, calculating eyes. "She's part of a much larger, organized criminal network," Agent Mickelson explained. "They target wealthy, established families. She's the Black Widow. She marries in, gains trust, isolates the primary asset holder, usually an elderly parent, and then systematically drains the family of everything." My blood turned to ice. "Hayes Construction was her biggest target yet," Mickelson said. "But she broke her pattern with you." "What pattern?" "Her previous targets. They were all widowers. She has 3 previous marriages. In each case, the husband's family was pushed out, and he died within a year of her gaining control of the assets." I couldn't breathe. "Died? How?" "Her second husband died in a car crash. Brake failure. Her third, a fatal fall down the stairs in his own home. Both were ruled accidents. We never had enough to prove otherwise. Until now. The pamphlets, the assisted living facility, the plan to have me declared incompetent. It was all a lie. A backup plan." "You don't think—" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "You don't think she was just planning to put me in a home, do you?" Agent Mickelson's eyes were grim. "No, Mrs. Hayes, we don't. The incompetence angle was just to secure the power of attorney, to give her legal control. Once she had that, you would have become a liability. Her M.O. is clean and final. The assisted living story was just what she told your son to get him on her side. We believe she was planning to murder you." The room spun. I thought about her in my kitchen, her handing me a cup of coffee, her helping me with dinner. I had been living with a predator, a serial killer, who was just waiting for the right moment to strike. The Christmas deadline wasn't for the paperwork. It was for me. I had to tell David. The phone call was the hardest I've ever made. He was silent for a full minute. I married a monster," he finally whispered. "I let a monster near my children. She was going to kill you, Mom, and I was helping her." "You didn't know, David," I said, my voice shaking. "You were a victim, too. She fooled federal investigators for years. You were her primary target, and she manipulated you perfectly." That night, he and I sat on the back porch, the one Richard had built. He was a broken man, but he was free. My fight wasn't over. Agent Mickelson asked me to testify before a federal grand jury. I wore my Navy boardroom armor suit. I walked into that room facing 23 strangers, and I held the folder of evidence I had collected. I didn't speak as a victim. I didn't speak as a confused old woman. I spoke as the CEO of Hayes Construction. I laid out the entire scheme, from the first fraudulent invoice to the final murderous plot. I detailed the psychological warfare, the gaslighting, the way she had systematically turned my own son against me. Sylvia Colton, Valerie Hayes, didn't just steal money, I said, my voice clear and strong, echoing in the silent room. She tried to steal my life, my family, my home, my sanity. And when that wasn't enough, she planned to steal my future. She made one fatal mistake, I concluded, looking at the jury foreman. She underestimated the woman she was trying to destroy. The grand jury returned a true bill on 28 federal counts, including racketeering, conspiracy, and, based on new evidence from her past, conspiracy to commit murder. 6 months later, Sylvia Marie Colton was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was too busy. I was in my backyard teaching my grandson, Jacob, how to use Richard's old tools to build a birdhouse. Emily was inside, helping David bake a cake. My cake, from my recipe. The house was loud, messy, and happy. David and the kids had moved in permanently. The sleek, sterile white furniture was gone, replaced by comfortable, warm pieces we had picked out together. My grandmother's rocking chair, which I'd found in a back room at the donation center, was back in its rightful place by the fire. The insurance and federal restitution covered every dollar Sylvia had stolen, but things didn't go back to the way they were. They got better. "Mom," David said one evening, spreading blueprints across the kitchen table, "I want to expand, open a new division specializing in custom homes for retirees, but I can't do it alone. I need a partner. Someone I can trust." "A partner?" "I'm not offering you your old job back, Mom," he said, smiling. "I'm offering you a new one. Senior partner, Hayes Construction. Equal say, equal stake. I need your experience. I need your instincts." I looked at him, my son, finally seeing me not as a mother to be managed, but as a partner. "I think," I said, picking up a pen to look at his plans, "I'd like that very much." That night, I sat on the back porch, watching the sunset. The house Richard built was safe. The company we'd founded was secure. My family was whole. I was 64 years old, a senior partner in a thriving business, and a full-time grandmother. Valerie, Sylvia, had tried to erase me. She had tried to lock me away and steal my life. Instead, she had given it back to me. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here. Enough.